pro quo President Trump has denied. The top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine details how President Trump tied military aid to an investigation of the Bidens and debunked theories about the 2016 election. Reports of gasps in the room as he made his case. The White House lashes back as a brand new poll shows support for impeachment climbing.
Red flag warning, the critical fire danger in the West, fierce winds, record heat, and extremely dry conditions fueling the threat this morning.
Terrifying close call. A massive tree suddenly crashing through the ceiling of a home with two teenage girls and their dog inside. What their dad said saved them from serious injury.
Facing new charges, Lori Loughlin, her husband, and 9 other parents hit with bribery charges in the college admission scandal. How they could carry more prison time if convicted, as Felicity Huffman's set to be released this weekend.
ABC News exclusive, the story behind those powerful interviews with Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan. Joining us live, the reporter who got them to open up like never before, as the Duchess steps out for the first time since the fallout from that groundbreaking documentary.
Third youngest player, as you saw, to hit cleanup in a World Series, and he just cleaned up.
The Washington Nationals cleaning up, stunning the Astros, and coming out on top for Game 1, their first World Series win ever. And the 20-year-old superstar slugger who absolutely crushed it.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
Good morning, America. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday morning in the Washington Nationals. They are setting the stage for the World Series. The fan celebration in D.C., that says it all. And 20-year-old outfielder Juan Soto rocking that monster home run last night. And I would say get that man a beer, but he won't be 21 until Friday. So early happy birthday to him, and what a big week.
What a big week. There's going to be some big celebrations coming up, but we are going to begin with that explosive day in Washington. The top America's top diplomat in the Ukraine making the case that President Trump held up military aid on the condition that Ukraine investigate his rival Joe Biden and the 2016 election.
Directly contradicts President Trump's denials of a quid pro quo, as a brand new poll just out this morning shows support for the impeachment inquiry hitting a new high, 55%. According to Quinnipiac, a jump from last week. Our senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce starts us off from Capitol Hill. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. Well, Democrats say this testimony is the most damaging yet to the president, and that it outlines what the president and his allies have been denying, a clear link between Trump and a campaign to pressure Ukraine to investigate the president's political opponents. In explosive testimony, Bill Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, personally implicates President Trump in a quid pro quo pressure campaign, describing in detail how Trump withheld military aid to force Ukraine to investigate his political rivals.
This is my most disturbing day in Congress so far. Very troubling.
Democrats in the room say there were gasps and sighs as Taylor, a career diplomat, described 8 separate times he was told the president demanded pressure be put on Ukraine to investigate the Bidens and debunked theories about the 2016 election.
His opening statement, which is now in the public domain, is devastating to Donald Trump. It was very damning for the president.
For weeks, Taylor says he was given no reason for why that much-needed assistance was being held up. But then, in September, the U.S. ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, told him the president himself wanted Ukraine to announce a public investigation into his Democratic rivals. Ambassador Sondland said everything was dependent on such an announcement, including security assistance. That Trump insisted Ukrainian President Zelensky go to a microphone and say he is opening investigations of Biden and 2016 election interference, and that Trump wanted Zelensky in a public box by making a public statement about ordering such investigations. Taylor detailing the pressure campaign that Trump has repeatedly denied.
But there was no quid pro quo.
There was no quid pro quo. There was no quid pro quo.
According to Taylor, the secretaries of Defense and State, the CIA director, and the National Security Advisor sought a joint meeting with the president to convince him to release the hold on the aid. But that meeting never happened. Taylor describes an irregular, informal channel of U.S. policymaking that included Ambassador Sondland and was led by the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. That unofficial channel, Taylor says, was running contrary to the goals of long-standing U.S. policy. Now, Taylor alerted multiple officials, including the Secretary of State, sending Secretary Pompeo a cable describing the, quote, folly he saw in withholding this aid, which Taylor says was potentially life-saving and critical to fending off Russian aggression. Taylor told Pompeo he simply could not defend holding up this aid, but Taylor says he did not receive a response. George.
Okay, Mary, not much response either from Republicans on Capitol Hill, but the White House did put out a statement.
Yeah, in a statement, the White House says that there was no quid pro quo. They continue to insist that the president has done nothing wrong. They say this is just a, quote, smear campaign by far-left lawmakers and radical unelected bureaucrats. But Taylor, of course, was put into this position in Ukraine by Pompeo himself and has served under presidents of both parties since 1985.
Yes, Mary, and before that, he graduated with honors from West Point, served in the infantry in Vietnam. So this idea that he's a radical waging war on the Constitution, that's a quote from the White House statement, is the smear right there, directly contradicted by Taylor's lifetime of service. I want to bring in Dan Abrams, our chief legal analyst, for more on this. And clearly, this testimony, the most significant incident yet in this impeachment inquiry.
Absolutely. And you can't view it in a vacuum, right? The administration would like you to say, well, you can't believe this guy. This guy's an outlier. The problem is that his testimony is entirely consistent with both the transcript of the phone call that's come out and the text messages amongst the diplomats.
And the admission from Mick Mulvaney last week.
And Mick Mulvaney as well. So you have to take it together. I mean, in a typical trial, right, defense attorneys will try to get people to isolate a single piece of evidence, and they'll say to the jury, you're not going to convict on that piece of evidence, are you? That's not enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And prosecutors will say, wait a sec, look at all of this together. Put all of the pieces together. And that's what I think you have to do in the context of what we're seeing here.
And it leads you to even more things to put together. We used to talk about the whistleblowers being a roadmap. This testimony also roadmap leading to new testimony from other witnesses and other documents.
With dates and times and notes to back it up. I mean, that's the important thing here. Taylor isn't just winging it here. He isn't just saying, oh, you know what, I think it was this day. He literally has notes, contemporaneous notes from all of this to back up what he's saying. And so he is going through methodically in his opening statement. He created a roadmap. He's laid out day by day. Here's what happened. Then I responded. Then they responded this way, et cetera. That's what makes this so much more powerful than just someone coming in and testifying.
White House sticking to this line, no quid pro quo.
Right. And so the president even seems, according to the testimony from Taylor, was saying no quid pro quo while doing things that would clearly be identified as a quid pro quo. And when you're looking at it legally, for impeachment purposes, whatever, you can call it whatever you want. It's the actions, it's the words that matter, not just how you characterize it.
Dan Abrams, thanks very much.
Okay, George, the impeachment inquiry has President Trump firing back, and that is sparking new outrage this morning. The president comparing the inquiry against him to a racist and painful chapter in American history, tweeting, take a look, all Republicans must remember what they are witnessing here, a lynching. Now, some of his Republican allies quick to denounce the language, but others defended it. Take a listen.
This is a lynching in every sense. This is un-American. I think lynching is being seen as somebody taking the law in their own hands and out to get somebody for no good reason.
Okay, so let's bring in Terry Moran there at the White House. Terry, this was yet another remarkable moment in this presidency.
It sure was, Cecilia. The president has used a lot of incendiary language to express his fury at the impeachment inquiry, but for millions of Americans, this crossed a line. The history of lynching in this country is a history of pain and terror and racist tyranny. Thousands of black Americans were murdered this way. So for the president to use this term to compare a congressional investigation to a lynching, it was a rhetorical firebomb, one he deliberately detonated for political purposes. And as you say, even for some of his Republican allies, it was too much. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky said that given the history of our country, he would not have used this term. Now, the president's defenders were very quick to point out that some Democrats, including Joe Biden, used this term to describe the impeachment of Bill Clinton. Biden's defenders say neither he nor the other Democrats have the same incendiary history around racial issues that this president does.
Yeah, stunning one there. Terry, one more headline before we let you go this morning. That anonymous senior official who penned the op-ed claiming to be part of the resistance inside the administration now has a book coming out.
That's right. It's got Washington buzzing. It's called A Warning. A senior Trump administration official is the author. In that original New York Times article, he painted a devastating portrait of President Trump, saying that he was erratic, making half-baked and reckless decisions. This is exactly the kind of thing that just infuriates the president. He clearly does not have the loyalty of everyone around him. Cecilia?
Terry Moran, thank you very much.
It's
George?
coming out soon, November 19th. We're going to move on now to the latest on the crisis in Syria. As U.S. troops continue to pull back, Russia is moving in, reaching a deal with Turkey on control of Kurdish territory. Our chief foreign correspondent James Longham reports from the region this morning. Good morning, James.
Good morning, George. With America moving out, Syria's future now firmly in the hands of these even more dominant power brokers. Presidents Putin and Erdogan cementing their control of the north. After a 6-hour meeting, the two men agreed a new deal. Turkey will retain its control of the area it's claimed after these last 2 weeks of fighting, but Kurdish forces are now required to withdraw from even more land, a strip of territory to the east and west along the border. Erdogan saying Kurdish military positions are to be destroyed and that Kurdish soldiers will be forced to pull back. His ultimate goal, to resettle 2 million Syrian refugees currently in Turkey into that Kurdish region, meaning the fate of thousands of Kurds already uprooted from their homes is still in the balance. And without their American partners, in the face of a looming humanitarian crisis, the Kurds may have little choice but to accept. George?
And James, at least some of the U.S. troops pulling out will be going to Iraq. That comes with some controversy as well.
Yeah, that's right. The Iraqis have now publicly refused to allow them in. And so the Defense Secretary Mark Esper has been in this morning in Baghdad, making the case for their redeployment. We're just hearing in the last few moments that Iraq has said they will now have 4 weeks in which to leave. This has been a chaotic situation and one over which Russia and Turkey have taken full advantage. George?
James Longman, thanks very much. Michael?
All right, thank you, George. Now to the extreme fire danger in California. It's intensifying this morning. Record heat and fierce winds posing dangerous conditions. Ginger's here with the red flag warnings right now. Good morning, Ginger.
Good morning to you, Michael. Right behind the storm that's going to bring snow from Denver to Amarillo, there's this Great Basin high that settles in by tomorrow. That rotates clockwise, sends winds offshore, especially in California. The whole state almost is under some sort of critical fire danger. Tomorrow, Southern California going to get into extreme fire danger. But today is Northern California's turn to be at its worst. So if you're anywhere there in the red flag warning, which that means that fires start easily and then spread rapidly, from Quincy to San Rafael, you could end up seeing 45-mile-per-hour wind gusts. The Bay Area, 10 to 20% relative humidity. That is very dry. I know our meteorologist Drew Tuma at ABC 7 there in the Bay Area is going to be all over it, and we will too this week. Cecilia?
Okay, Ginger, thank you. Now to Penn State, temporarily suspending a fraternity after a 17-year-old died at an off-campus house. Gio Benitez has this story.
This morning, a Penn State fraternity has been suspended as police investigate the death of a visiting high school senior. Officers were called out Saturday to an off-campus house, which the school says was allegedly occupied by Chi Phi fraternity members.
522 West College Avenue. 17-year-old male, unconscious for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Breathing is very shallow.
State College police finding 17-year-old John Schoenig in full cardiac arrest. First responders tried to resuscitate him, but he was pronounced dead on the scene. His high school posting this on Facebook: "Please pray for the Prep Villa community as we mourn the passing of our brother, John Jack Schoenig." Friends and teammates also remembering the student athlete.
You could walk in the locker room and everyone just brightens up, smile on their faces, joking around. On the ice, always gave it his all.
Police say there were no signs of trauma, and several witnesses told them he became unconscious, but the university not taking any chances, immediately issuing an interim suspension to the Alpha Delta chapter of Chi Phi. Fraternities across the country have been under fire, Penn State having one of the largest hazing prosecution cases in American history. In 2017, 19-year-old sophomore Tim Piazza died after an alcohol-fueled party at the Beta Theta Pi fraternity house. In Schoenig's case, there are no allegations of hazing or alcohol, but police are asking anyone with information to come forward.
And the medical examiner says it may take weeks to learn what triggered his cardiac arrest. The fraternity's national chapter telling us overnight it is deeply saddened by this tragic event. They point out this happened at an off-campus house not owned by Chi Phi, but say the fraternity is assisting investigators right now.
A lot of people want these answers.
No question about it.
Such a tragedy. Thanks, Gio. We're going to turn now to that terrifying close call for one Maryland family. It was caught on camera. A massive tree, take a look at this, crashes into their home while the family's 2 teenage daughters were just sitting, hanging out with their dog. The family's Ring surveillance video captured the moment the tree fell through the ceiling, destroying the living room. You can see that extensive damage there. Unfortunately and miraculously, the girls and the dog were not seriously injured, Michael.
Oh, thank goodness for that. And now we're going to turn to the World Series and a thrilling start to the Fall Classic. 20-year-old Juan Soto and the Washington Nationals taking Game 1, stunning the Houston Astros and their elite pitcher, T.J. Holmes, is here with that. Good morning.
And that elite pitcher you're talking about, Houston Astros ace Garrett Cole, has not lost since May. He's 19-0 since May coming into the game. And again, the Nationals, huge underdogs. The Nationals never won a World Series game in their history. All that changed last night thanks to a kid goes by the name of Childish Bambino.
Houston Texans star J.J. Watt enthusiastically got the crowd ready for Game 1 of the World Series. Play ball! And after Pussycat Dolls' Nicole Scherzinger performed the national anthem, the crowd was treated to a thriller that featured Houston Astros ace pitcher Garrett Cole, who came into the game with 19 wins in a row, and the Washington Nationals' Juan Soto, the 20-year-old phenom left fielder known as the Childish Bambino.
Third youngest player, as you saw, to hit cleanup in a World Series, and he just cleaned up.
Soto crushed a 417-foot homer, tying the score in the 4th inning.
Wow!
Then in the 5th, Soto was at it again, smashing a 2-run double that gave the Nationals a 5-2 lead.
1 run scores. Here comes Rendon.
The Nationals managed to hang on for the 5-4 victory, the first ever World Series victory in their franchise history.
The Nationals take Game 1.
Soto turns 21 on Friday, the same day the city of Washington will host its first World Series game since 1933.
You were talking about this earlier. He's not even old enough to have a beer to celebrate the victory last night. But what he was doing is phenomenal. He said he relaxed afterwards, but that first at-bat, he admitted his knees were shaking a little bit. His legs were a little wobbly.
Big moment.
But he did, 20 years old. Think of what you were doing at 20, and he was putting on that display last night.
Butterflies to work.
Oh, yeah. So, but yeah, Game 2 is tonight, but D.C. is going to be something on Friday. They have not hosted a World Series since 1933, that city. That is huge.
Big party in store.
Yep, they win the game and he'll be 21. There will be a party.
Thanks, TJ. We'll follow a lot of other stories this morning, including those new charges against Lori Loughlin and other parents in the college admission scandal. Does it increase the chances they're going to settle?
And we have an ABC News exclusive. Joining us live, the reporter behind those emotional moments with Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan in that new documentary. But first, let's go back over to Ginger.
Who's ready for snow? Anybody? No? Okay, well, Denver's about to get some more. They're going to get about 2 to 4 inches in the winter weather advisory right through Colorado Springs and Pueblo. There are snow alerts into New Mexico. And it's not just there. It goes all the way into the panhandle of Texas. So even Amarillo could pick up a couple of inches. That is going to make for a rough drive tonight through early tomorrow back there in the Rockies. All right, your local weather in 30 seconds. First, the Hot Cities, sponsored by Audible.
Discovery. No, just a sec.
What would it look like if we listened more? Could the right voice, the right set of words, bring us all just a little closer? Get us to open up, even push us further? It could, if we took the time to listen. The most inspiring minds, the most compelling stories. Download Audible and listen for a change.
Well, your 12-hour forecast today looking great. Out the door, grab the sunglasses with abundant sunshine today and also a jacket. It's a little chilly out there right now. Temperatures still in the 50s, but by lunchtime, sunny, 63, a little breezy, and highs in the mid to upper 60s. And then later tonight, if you're heading out to the ballpark for the World Series Game 2 watch party, well, just dress warm because temperatures will go from 58 at 8 o'clock down to 52 by midnight. Patchy frost possible out the door tomorrow and a little unsettled heading into the weekend.
So if you're not ready for snow, are you ready for mushrooms? Yes?
Whoa.
That is a mushroom.
Looks like a boulder.
It looks like it, and they put it together, and it looks very much like a snowman. My backyard this time of year is so scary, so this makes a lot of sense.
Take mushrooms over snow.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll be right back.
better with you. Whoa, whoa. Life is better.